Mr. Yanis Sarts is the director at NATO Strategic Communications, Center of Excellence.
How is it to be a neighbor with Russia? Can you tell us about Baltic perspective, especially from Latvia?
That's nothing new. It's part of our history. Being neighbors with Russia was different historical experiences. But these days, clearly, it is something that is worrying Baltic states for quite some time. The way Russia has been evolving over the past decades in a way of the country that is ready to attack the neighbor countries and annex the territories. And from the Baltic perspective, being the members of NATO and the EU, clearly we have seen a lot of Russian propaganda trying to penetrate the information space. Of course, one of the problems we see is that a significant number of the population in Latvia and Estonia are Russian speakers. So they are particularly targeted by the Russian propaganda. But on the other side, clearly, we've understood the problem for some time and have created some resilience within the society to the Russian propaganda.
How was the Russian influence in Baltic countries and Latvia, in media and other sectors?
It has had some influence. As I've said, there is a proportion of Russian speakers in the two of the Baltic states, in Latvia in particular. And Russia has tried to exercise influence over them. We've had, especially before the annexation of Crimea, significant number of Russian TV stations, Russian radio stations that were transmitted in the Baltic and in Latvia, which had transmitted the Russian falsehoods and Russian propaganda. But over the last few years, and very recently in particular, basically all of those Russian TVs have been banned from transmitting in Latvia. Of course, these days it's not easy in the internet age to fully ban, but yes, legally the Russian TV is banned in Latvia, as is some of the written media as well.
How Putin makes trouble to the Baltic countries, apart from political troubles. What are the other troubles that he can make in that region?
Well, from the perspective of kind of strategy, Baltics is no different than other countries. What they're trying to do, they're trying to use the vulnerabilities that we have. So the way they try to kind of influence the Baltics is through basically exploiting the national factor. The Russian speakers are supposedly being suppressed. So therefore, they have to unite around the kind of Russian narrative first. Second, they say that the Baltics are failed states and trying to use the economic issues or social economic issues as the proof of that. Of course, neglecting that in any of the Baltics, the life is by many factors, economic factors, so much better than it is in Russia. Then, of course, they're using corruption. They're using corruption and economic coercion to get their agents of influence in the Baltics, both economically as well as sometimes politically. And as I've said, they are also trying to use the Russian media for influence. What they want to do, they want to create the Baltics as a states that are supportive of a Russian foreign policy, which is impossible, I think. But what they try to do is actually damage the Baltics' ability to to kind of have a resilient society, is resilient towards the Russian interest.
As we see, Latvia has helped a lot of Ukrainians in both moral and military ways. How does Latvia see the crisis in Ukraine after the invasion?
Well, Latvian society clearly has taken very much to heart what is happening in Ukraine. And the understanding in the society is that unfortunately, under Putin, Russia, if it succeeds in Ukraine, they will try to continue these kinds of policy in other countries. And of course, understanding within the Latvian society that the Baltics might be at risk as well. So therefore, there is a very much an understanding that it is also a very important war for the Baltics. One. Second, in the Baltic history, after the 1940, when the Russians occupied the Baltic states, we had a much of a very similar experiences by deportations, executions of people and the elite, and etc. So there's a lot of empathy for what is happening in Ukraine, and therefore Latvia, as you rightly said, has had a lot of support to Ukraine from many angles. There's been military support. Latvia has received quite a significant number of Ukrainian refugees, and also the Latvian society is supporting Ukraine, both from a humanitarian, but also from a military perspective. Society, not the government, has raised funds for the military equipment that is donated to the Ukrainian military to help them fight the war.
Does European Union and NATO make enough to help to support Ukrainian people? From the Balkan perspective, we think that it is not enough. How do you see that?
Well, NATO and EU is a collective group of nations. And nations do have different perspectives of what is happening, and also their sense of an urgency is very different. So it takes time to agree, but what I clearly see is that the way Russia has waged the war, the way Russia has been communicating, has been helping to create more and more NATO's and EU resolve. As we've seen, the Finland and Sweden have applied to join NATO, and the applications have been accepted. EU is strengthening their military capabilities. So very much on the right direction. Is what is being done enough right now? Of course not. But one has to understand the complexities of international organizations. They can't move, especially in the circumstances as they are in this war. They can't move quick enough.
In Balkans, we have Serbia, who is very close with Russia, and if we make parallels, Russia also uses Belarus to make influences and to make troubles to neighbors. How do you see these parallels? How is Russia using these countries?
Well, I'm by no means I'm Balkans expert, so I would be very cautious in my judgments. But clearly, there is a difference between Serbia and Belarus. Belarus, by and large, has, in many aspects, lost a lot of their sovereignty, and is, in a way, and kind of annexed to Russia these days, especially when Lukashenko's regime solely depends on the support from Putin. Serbia is different, as you rightly said. They have had a very good relations with Russia and have been used as in this capacity in the Balkans by Russia. But of course, Serbia is also very much dependent on European Union, which is not the case with Belarus. So there are some parallels, but there are certainly significant differences between Serbia and Belarus.
Do you think that Ukraine and Moldova will soon be part of NATO? What about Balkan countries?
It's not a simple question, because one thing is clear that, and Latvia was accepted to NATO only in 2004, as many other countries, including from the Balkan region. It's not just saying that we accept a new country. It's basically saying that we are ready to send our soldiers to die for that country. So it's a significant commitment. And to make that commitment, it's not only about the nation's military, it's about the way the nation is, whether the nation is ready to share the same values and principles, whether the government, the way the nation is being run is something we understand and the way we would relate. So very little corruption, very little nepotism, and things like that. So is it possible? I think it is possible. Is it near future? I don't think it's a near future.